Welcome to the Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfaris with an overview of what's happening in the world of economics and finance. Today we focus on East Asia with several reports on the topic. We start in China, where urbanization has long been one of the main signs of the country's progress. But some say there's a darker side to urbanization, as local authorities are accused of land grabs to finance trillions of dollars in debt. More in the next report.
Xu Haifeng has seen the dark side of China's local government debt. 3 years ago, she was evicted and her house demolished. The city of Wuxi's hard-up authorities selling her land to raise much-needed cash. This is where she used to live. The new houses which replaced hers are selling for up to 4 times what she was offered. And since she tried to fight, she says she's been a target.
Ever since they started to demolish our house and relocate us, my husband and I have been constantly harassed. At my front door, I was beaten black and blue, but the public security authorities won't investigate.
Xu's story couldn't be independently verified, but all of these evictees claimed similar abuse. This is all that's left of Shenzhen's house. He says he was beaten and detained when he refused to hand it over.
They demolish our homes and relocate us because they don't have any money. Any place which has a deficit does it. That's just the way it is.
Wuxi's authorities couldn't be reached for comment, but according to Amnesty International, land grabs in China are nothing new. As the country's economies slowed, they've also increased. Local governments are in need of cash after borrowing heavily to fund big construction projects. This huge new courthouse in Wuxi, a prime example. Investment in the province was equivalent to more than half its economy last year. And nationwide, local government borrowing exceeds $1.5 trillion. Industrial bank's Lu Zhengwei thinks land disputes could be avoided if dealt with fairly.
The first problem that needs to be resolved is how to ensure all sides are protected, especially those whose land is being seized. The second is how to ensure that the profit is used openly, transparently and effectively, and not, for example, received in part with no one knowing where the rest has gone.
Its drive for urbanization has helped China become the world's second biggest economy, but it's clearly come at a cost. Land seizures are among the biggest causes of social unrest across the country.
Joining us in the studio now is Asia business expert Reshef for a discussion about economic trends in Asia and the main factors influencing the economies in the region. Mr. Reshef, so is local debt in China really a very big problem for the Chinese economy?
Well, it is a problem because the amount of money that is due is quite high. It started all with the economic crisis that started in 2008, where the exports were going down and China's economy is based on exports. So they had to do something else in order to push the economy up. And this had to be based on loans. Easy loans. Once you're giving money easily, freely, not everybody is able to bring it back, to pay it back. So you've got a huge amount of loans that were not reimbursed. And there we've got a debt, a huge debt of more than $1 trillion, as we could see, mainly to local municipalities and provinces and so on. It is a problem, but since the country is quite rich with huge reserves of money, and since all those communities and municipalities are in effect a branch of the local government, it is not a democratic country where the municipality is elected freely, then the government will have to put their hand in the pocket, take out the money. They have these amounts. They have much more than $3 trillion. Sure. So they can solve it. It's just the question of how much effort are they ready to put into it. That's all.
Okay. So what are the main issues then that the Chinese economy is facing?
Currently, the Chinese economy is in an age of transition. They started by being a communist country producing rice and bicycles. They passed to become the world's #1 producer of cheap commodities. And now they're passing into the third phase, which is producer of technology and advanced products. Yeah. So currently, they are leaving behind the production of toys and furnitures and clothing into radars, airplanes, medical stuff, and so on. And they're going to put a very high competition to countries like Israel, like the Western European countries and America, mainly to the technological industry.
Wouldn't you say that one of their main challenges, though, is really making a name for themselves, where they produce quality? Because there still is the understanding amongst a lot of people that it's made in China, it's not necessarily as good.
Yeah. Well, we have to recall what happened with the Japanese economy dealing with the 50s and the 60s. Made in Japan was equivalent to something that breaks up in a month. This is exactly where Korea started, where China started. Now China is following up those two examples, and they're passing to the new stage, new age, where they are going to be based on high quality. For the moment, we are still carrying this image that started 10 years, 20 years ago. It's about to end.
Okay. Thanks for that comment. Let's now go to the next story. The European Union in August reached a deal for minimum prices for Chinese solar panels imported to Europe. As the deal was below the minimum suggested by European manufacturers, the EU has for now decided against imposing preliminary anti-subsidy tariffs. I24 News reporter Daniel Roth has more.
A trade war between China and the EU over solar panels pricing has been averted. The EU had accused Chinese solar panels manufacturers of dumping their products at below-cost prices in Europe. This, they said, was made possible thanks to large Chinese government subsidies, which allowed them to sell about 21 billion euros worth of solar panels in Europe last year, a move that put several European panel firms out of business. The EU placed an 11.8% tariff on Chinese solar panel imports and intended to raise it to 47% on August 6th if no settlement was reached. Eventually, EU states decided that negotiations rather than conflict were the best way to approach the matter.
The Chinese suppliers have agreed to a voluntary price undertaking where they commit to stop dumping and keep prices above a certain floor. In return, those companies who participate in this engagement do not have to pay the anti-dumping duties.
Chinese solar modules will have to cost at least 56 euro cents per watt, and exports will be limited to a certain amount per year. 70% of Chinese manufacturers have accepted the agreement and will benefit from the lower tariff, which will initially apply until the end of 2015. The deal has probably averted a large-scale trade war. For one, in response to the initial EU tariff plan, China announced that it was launching an inquiry into European wine sales in China, which would have led to taxes being levied on them. Both sides now expect that various trade conflicts will be dropped as gestures of goodwill. Some supporters of photovoltaic energy production hailed the deal as leading the way for wider use of the technology and larger production of cleaner energy. Others criticized it, saying it will lead to price hikes and achieve the opposite result. The coming months will tell whose prediction is proven right.
So, Mr. Reshef, now we're already talking about the Chinese being able to produce all kinds of commodities, technologies, etc., and a lot of them are actually good quality. They're much cheaper.
Yeah.
So are these anti-subsidy tariffs and all these other things that the EU and the US and other countries are trying to put on Chinese goods, are they effective?
Well, in a way, it depends how much effort the Europeans and the Americans and Japanese are ready to put into it. For the moment, they're not putting the same effort as the Chinese are putting. So now they're getting into a kind of an accord, a kind of a conclusion with the Chinese regarding solar panels, while China has already become world giant of production of solar panels. 50% of solar panels in the world are produced in China. So China can afford being generous about this point, and they're putting their effort, their economic war now on other things. Medical issues, combined electronics, computerized issues. Airplanes quite soon will be entering into the arena. So China is not dealing only with solar panel. China wants to base its economy in a few years on everything which is advanced and technological. They've already conquered the area of solar panels. They're moving on. The Europeans have waken up a bit too late. So, I mean, essentially there's really very little that can be done against these Chinese goods just streaming into the market. Is the whole subsidy system in China, is it something that we can expect to see for a long time? Absolutely. It is serving China for more than 30 years. There's no way they're going to put it aside since it's effective. They're going to use it every time for another sector, for another issue that they want to push forward. If the Europeans or other countries in the Western world want to fight against it, they need to be quicker. They have to be more fast. They cannot let themselves pass 6, 7, 8 years until the moment of getting into a real clash with the Chinese when this area has already been conquered by Chinese companies.
Okay, now going to something a little different right now with Thailand. Rice was once a source of pride for Thailand as it played a crucial part in the Thai economy, but a recent scheme to subsidize rice is proving to be disastrous. I24 News editor Amir Ben David came back from Thailand with the following report.
This is one of Thailand's famous rice fields, once a source of national pride and a significant portion of the Thai economy. These days, a cradle of political controversy and a shadow on the future of the state's economy. A new opinion poll carried out by the Bangkok University found that the Thai government's approval rating has fallen to its lowest level yet. Most damaging was the government flagship scheme to subsidize rice. The rice subsidy was classic populism. 40% of Thais work in agriculture, most of them as rice farmers. Before being elected, Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra promised that her government would buy rice directly from farmers at about twice the market rate, 50,000 baht, or about $500 per ton. This was meant to put money into poor farmers' pockets and stimulate domestic demand. Skeptics warned that the scheme would be impossibly expensive and would severely damage Thai rice exports.
You see a lot of exporters gone out of business, and that's probably the end of the rice industry in Thailand.
But advisors to Shinawatra said that pulling rice away from world markets in this way would force up its price. Since Thailand was the world's biggest exporter of rice, the government thought it would be able to cash in later by selling its stockpiles of grain at a profit. Actually, farmers were initially very happy with the odd plan.
I want the government scheme to continue because at the very least it helps us farmers sell our rice at a high price.
The rice scheme was a useful vote winner for Prime Minister Shinawatra during the election campaign in 2011, but its costs now jeopardize both the government's finance and the economy as a whole. Unable to find buyers for its highly priced rice, the Thai government has been forced to stockpile 18 million tons of it and counting. This amount equals to nearly half the annual global trade in rice. Another unwanted consequence for Thailand, India and Vietnam has now overtaken it as the world's biggest rice exporters. Buying rice from farmers has been terribly expensive for the Thai government, which spent $12.5 billion on it in 2012. This year, the cost is expected to rise to about $15 billion, or 4% of Thai's GDP. Storing the rice also carries heavy administrative and logistical costs, including expensive new warehouses.
They are in a jam, because with all this rice hanging around, they have very little option to do anything else other than just keep on going. Because otherwise the rice price will drop and then they will have political problems.
So what can we expect to see in Southeast Asia in terms of the economy?
Well, we have to expect one thing, which is economic war. This is what we are having there. It is not anymore the simple situation when you've got the big economies of Japan, Korea, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Now all the countries in East Asia are participating to this new economy. All of them want their place under the sun, and they're fighting. They're fighting with what they want. So if before that the area of production of rice, exporting of rice, was solely at the hands of the Thailand,
Vietnam's taken over, other countries are taken over, right? No one's sleeping, so to speak.
Absolutely, and soon we are going to have more participants because we are dealing with Cambodia and Laos and Myanmar, who are going to join this rice war. So the Thai government cannot afford for a long run to continue subsidizing it, because they're going to have even bigger competition with the time that progresses. And it is not only rice. We see it in manufacturing of goods, in manufacturing of cars. Everything that brings money to the economies of East Asia is becoming a war, will become a war, will become tougher war with the time.
Right. Well, subsidization, I mean, on the one hand, it's gotten a really bad rap. On the other hand, you know, there's situations like in India where it's been said that one of the main issues that India has is that they are too dependent on importing energy, and that they really should, you know, focus on developing their own energy sector so they can be more self-sufficient. What can you say about India?
Well, India is a very unique situation because, first of all, they are very different because their economy, unlike the other East Asian countries, is not based on export, it's based on internal market. Right. So once you're based on internal market and you're investing huge money on importing energy sources, you're in a problem, you're in deficit.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Tang. Reshef, that wraps it up for our East Asia special. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfares. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join us again next time.